So number one, there should be a minimum of 18. There should be a minimum 18-foot width between the onshore end of the dock and an obstruction such as a seawall, building, fence, or vegetation to allow unimpeded pedestrian passage along the shoreline. And the rationale for that was that the residents enjoy walking along the shoreline, and it's a real, well, I'll read what I wrote here. This condition applied to the most recent dock constructed in the village, and that a dock appears to have a minimum impact on pedestrian passage. The rights to walk along and enjoy the foreshore and to be protected from visual pollution are important to village residents. This is not a severe limitation for the present shoreline configuration of the village. Okay, number two, the minimum distance along shore between the dock and village waterfront property.
Oh, want to discuss?
Yeah, let's do
forward.
that. Yep.
Is there any language regarding an easement, because we're walking on private property?
That's already in the
That's
laws.
in the law. Okay.
Yeah.
That's in
That
the law.
if there's, right.
It's just
So what is
class
that?
how far.
What is the question? I'm sorry.
He asked about the easement, whether an easement needs to be granted by the dock owner for passage above high water.
So the answer is yes. Right?
The answer is it's already in other parts of the law.
It's in other parts of the law. Okay,
It
good.
doesn't, it's not something we have to fix.
Okay.
Okay, number two, the minimum distance along shore between the dock and village waterfront property, parentheses, beach or waterfront park, as well as roadway, right-of-way, etc., shall be 200 feet. And the rationale is that village waterfront parks are not centered on the associated beach access, and docks built less than 200 feet away from the waterfront park boundaries would interfere with the residents' use of beach areas below mean high water. Discussion. Three, new docks shall not interfere with existing established moorings in village mooring areas. And the rationale, since village residents have long had right to a mooring in village waters and mooring areas which reach the Poquott shoreline were defined in the Port Jefferson Harbor Management Plan. Displacing permitted moorings in favor of a new dock would negatively impact village boaters who pay a fee to the village for their moorings. This is not a severe limitation, since water depth at low tide at the end of a dock can be no more than 4 feet. Okay, number four, the decking of the dock shall be of an open grate design to allow maximum light penetration. And the rationale is that an open grate design allows for light, air, and water to pass through the decking. This helps to minimize habitat fragmentation and loss of habitat.
And that's what was put on the recent dock that was built, right?
Right, and it actually is part of the Brookhaven permit for the dock.
What is an open grate design?
It means that there are slots in the,
Instead of planking.
instead of planks that touch, there are slots that allow light to go through.
Between the planks?
There's a gap.
No,
between-
it's a plastic, usually material, or metal. I guess it's metal.
Okay, good.
That has could be.
I thought the DEC required every 4 planks or every other plank to be plastic. Is that,
Well, this is
unless I'm
not a
mistaken?
material. This is so the dockette that was built had a grating that allowed 60% of 60% holes to allow light to go through, so you don't end up with a shaded area underneath.
right? No, but okay, as long as it meets the DEC regulations.
And this was, as I say, happened to be in the Brookhaven permit for that dock.
Okay.
So it's not unreasonable.
And they use that. It's mentioned the term open grate is used.
It's yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
5, the dock shall be constructed of untreated tropical hardwoods, untreated lumber, or polymer-coated treated lumber to eliminate the potential for chemically treated materials from coming into contact with the marine environment. Untreated tropical hardwood must be used for the pilings and cross bracing and any other portion of the dock that will be submerged or in contact with the water, either in whole or part during ordinary tidal cycles. And so it says, our code does not mention the kinds of materials that can be used to construct a dock, which was an oversight. Tropical hardwoods are a good choice for submerged materials, and any treated lumber must be polymer coated. And
Do you want to, just because I've dealt with tropical hardwoods before, is there one that you want to specify?
I don't know.
Or isn't there, okay, I thought there's one or two kinds that come from South America that were the preferable kinds. But is this sufficient, or is this too broad?
I think so there's a requirement that whatever's used have a life of 20 years. And so in the case of this dock, the builder affirmed a 20-year life, and we found discussions of 40-year pilings lasting 40 years. So it would have to be a tropical hardwood that would meet that. Now, we don't say it has to be sustainable sourced or things like that. But this seemed to be the language of our prior permit, and it seemed restrictive enough.
On Fire Island, for the walkways, after the Superstorm Sandy, what they did now is they built the walkways so they actually will submerge in flooding and stay in place. They're actually piled down, so they submerge, and there's a particular type of hardwood, tropical hardwood that they switch to, but there's one type that everybody uses, and I just wondered if tropical hardwoods is too broad. My only question is
okay.
If it's, and I don't know that it is or it isn't. I'm just saying that I just
I mean, the only drawback to that I can see is that if something better comes along, then we've limited ourselves.
So if you put that, you could put all equal,
All equal.
because
All equal.
like,
Yeah.
for that reason.
Right.
Preferred.
And since we already have a 20-year minimum life on the
Okay.
filings,
this one.
What was the word? Was it 19?
I'm sorry. I've been to maybe 50 meetings where it's mentioned, but I just can't. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay. I think there was.
No, could it also be made of some other? I mean, is this limited just to lumber, hardwood, untreated lumber?
Well, so that's a design question. You can create these things, docks out of
Concrete.
right, or fiberglass mono pilings, but then it would look sort of funny with the one piling. So
Right,
this is
right.
more an architectural comment than
So most concrete is actually really bad to use, but there's new kinds of concrete that they're now developing that are called green concrete because of the huge pH changes that the concrete causes in the water. It's extremely detrimental to organisms. So you don't want to allow regular concrete. That's like a really bad idea.
we could, if we're thinking about the potential for new materials, we could add a phrase about that'd be open to suggestions using alternative materials with similar.
They would be able to ask for a variance if there was a specific.
No.
No, there's no
Because we
variance.
have this.
So we could be a little more open and say that we could use other materials are possible if they would have similar characteristics.
Maybe they have to meet a certain criteria.
Well, they have to be-
Criteria.
Well, that could be similar environmental characteristics.
Yeah, because otherwise we have to define what those criteria are. And that's not an easy thing to do.
But I don't think, well, I think one could, under our rules, one could have used pressure-treated posts rather than hardwood, so we can avoid that.
still use that now, because you have the power code.
No.
Oh, untreated lumber. Can't be treated.
Well, this
Yeah,
says,
Code of untreated,
Or polymer coated treated lumber.
but it
but not
says
for
that.
piling, so
not
that
for
they're,
piling.
I see.
not the fully immersed.
And when this says, that may become immersed, and we're at, isn't, everything's at FEMA +2 or something, right? And there's some kind, isn't a dock required to be or it's not?
Well, we talk about 4 feet above mean high water as the height. And so that's,
Our laws and this.
Okay,
so that's above the ordinary tidal cycle.
so that'll be good for like 1 or 2 years, 1 or 2 years,
100 years.
till the next storm of the century.
Well, next planning board.
Yeah, that's all I'm.
So I added the sentence, other materials may be allowed as long as they have similar environmental characteristics. Sounds good. 6, the float shall be made of any of the materials provided for in item 5 above, or any other suitable material approved by the village environmental consultant or village, supposed to say engineer.
Oh, okay, I was wondering about that.
Again, we haven't had any wording about what the float can be constructed of. And this is the wording that was in the permit as approved for our loosened dock. 7, all floats shall be installed in such a way that a minimum of 6 inches of separation exists between the benthos and the bottom of the dock through all tidal cycles. In our code, in the definition part, we say that no float or floating portion of any dock or float, or any dock or floating dock may rest on the bottom at any time. And so the 6 inches is a little bit more restrictive, but the wording matches the Brookhaven dock permit. And by putting it here, it'll actually be in our code and part of the review criteria, rather than sort of hidden in a definition. This allows us to have as a design question whether the dock of the float is so thick that it would, is such a draft that it would touch the bottom. And then 8, no float or floating dock may be stored at any time within a wetland, below the spring or storm high water mark of an adjacent beach, or within or on the face of a dune, bluff, or beach scarp. So one of our village docks has been in the habit of storing their float next to the dock on the beach. And that doesn't seem right. And also, this language was in that Brookhaven dock permit. And we do require that floats be removed in the winter time because the tide range in the winter is bigger, tends to be lower. And this says you just can't put it on the beach next to you. Take it away. So those are, I think that's what's come out of our discussions. Comments? So it's interesting that the Brookhaven permit says that if Brookhaven decides to do something along the waterfront and the dock's in the way, they can be able to take it away, take it out.
Really?
But we don't really have any plans for offshore.
The resident gets a permit from the village first, then Brookhaven?
Right, because the land, once you get below high water, is owned by Brookhaven. So you actually lease the land or somehow get the land from Brookhaven. Okay?
What's the next step?
So the next step is to, I guess, make this as a motion and send it to the trustees.
Make a motion that we accept it and forward it to the trustees.
Yeah.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? So I made two corrections here. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So that was my agenda. Any other items?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes?
The tree law,
Yes.
is it ever going to like
Oh, okay.
move forward or something? Because, so I have neighbors who, it's hardly come home any day or any weekend when there aren't chainsaws going as more trees are being cut down. So I was just curious if we were going to actually have a tree law.
Well, I guess we thought we would see what the tree consultant had to say.
By then, we may not
I was
have
gonna say, we're making
many
the
trees.
job very easy by cutting them
Have
all
we,
down.
have we
I
gotten
mean,
any dates on the consultant? I thought that
I
was
don't
supposed to be.
Have they done the work?
They're working. I don't know if they're done. I know we got one bill for,
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Are you paying? Okay.
Can we be informed as soon as we hear something from them? Thank you.
I actually asked her about Japanese knotweed, if she had any recommendations on how to control it, because it's now along the beach, which I've never noticed
oh
before.
yeah, it
And
actually,
she
All
said
over.
somebody
it's,
Yeah, it's
in
all
her
over.
firm has prepared some sort of management plan, so she said she'd email it to me. So
Say
reach out to her.
there are a variety of different things that have been tried and most things don't work.
Right,
But what I had it all over my property and I got rid of it. And
how?
you have to be very aggressive. And
Right,
basically,
exactly.
you have to dig it out. You
Yeah,
have to
just
dig
keep
out all.
doing it.
You have to dig out all the roots and rhizomes,
Mhm.
and you have to then, once you get all that dug out, you have to then be very careful because you disturb the soil.
Exactly.
And so then you make it vulnerable to other invaders. So you just got to
Right.
watch it carefully
Right.
and keep doing that. And then just keep pulling it up each
Yes.
time it shows up. There's
That's
a
what I do
lot
on
of
my
it.
property, but.
There's a lot of it in all of our parks.
Mhm.
There's a huge amount of it in Trustees Park, and they're so big that they're going to flower. And as soon as they go to flower, then we get seeds spreading, and they're spreading throughout the village.
Right.
And
Yeah,
this
like I said, I've never noticed it on the beach.
it's a really, it's really spreading a huge amount, but it's in all the beach parks, and it really likes those sort of moist areas, and it's in Trustees Park, and it's
At Walnut Beach.
it's
A lot.
growing as a problem in people's yards all over the
Well,
place.
that's the thing, and it's more
And so-
that people in their own
But
personal
then
yards
if
are
you're
not taking
vigilant
care
about
of
it, I just
Yeah.
have to,
keep doing
each
it.
year, I
It's just
pull
when your
out
neighbors are
about
not doing it.
3 or 4 new ones, but I have next door neighbors who don't control it.
Yeah, I
And so
can't.
that
I'm on
continues to be a problem. But
Totally trespass.
it cannot be controlled by just spraying herbicide on it.
No.
That
no,
will
no.
not work. Some people have tried injecting herbicide into the rhizome, but you've got to be very diligent and keep doing that. I'd rather just sort of dig it up and get it out. But it is resistant to most herbicides,
Mhm.
or all the legal ones. There are a lot. There are some illegal herbicides that you cannot have in New York State. We're not allowed to use Agent Orange or anything. But,
Or not.
Too bad the deer don't eat it.
but
Yeah.
if we don't start controlling it now, it's going to escalate in being a bigger and bigger problem because the plants are so huge, they are going to flower and their seeds are spreading like crazy.
I thought it only grew on land that was previously disturbed.
Nope. Nope, you can find it, I can actually show you.
Because on my
Trustees Park,
property,
it's-
wherever it's been disturbed is where it's growing. Then
Right.
you see little, attempts for it to take root in other places, but not very successful, mostly where it's been disturbed.
Well, that's sort of the new places where it's sort of showing up. The disturbed places are where
It
it
actually
does very,
pretty.
very
It
well.
doesn't look-
But it's
Just
like, it's the older.
amazingly aggressive.
Yeah,
Wow.
maybe they're
It's
fast.
extremely
Supposed to
It's
ask.
right
extremely
privacy,
aggressive.
but
I could
when you
never
realize how
take
much
it out of my
it's starting to
property.
take over.
I have to be Superman.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It just takes a lot of.
Sorry.
Take it to see.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
But it's something that I think that we really,
So we need
really,
a village horticulturalist.
we need to start managing these invasive species that are really
Give me the
encroaching on
price.
all of our property. Do you guys deal at all with invasives or the plants that are planted into the parks?